So the Christian Parapsychologist Journal is 50 years old this year, and as such, we're holding an online anniversary conference for anyone who's interested in learning more about the interface between Christianity, parapsychology, and the paranormal. And it will be held on June the 28th. One of our guest speakers is Alan Murdie, who will be speaking on the gospel miracles in light of psychical research. And so, Alan, for our viewers, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Alan Murdie, and I've been involved in psychical research and investigating paranormal subjects now for a great many years. I currently act as chairman of the Ghost Club,
Oh,
which
great place, a great place.
is a long existent body dating back to the mid 19th century, which
Mhm.
I would describe primarily as a cultural body, rather than necessarily as a scientific one. But I've long been interested in the scientific investigation of paranormal phenomena. I've been involved with the Society for Psychical Research off and on for getting on for nearly 40 years. And I've been on the council of the SPR for about 2 decades now. I also used to chair the Spontaneous Cases Committee of the Society for Psychical Research, which looks into reports of paranormal experiences and phenomena which occur outside laboratory conditions. At the same time, my professional background, my work has been in the law. I'm a barrister, and I realise that there's a great many questions that you can't answer or establish. Great many things in everyday life you can't prove by means of scientific methods or clinical trials. That's why we have courts and tribunals, because you can't prove everything in laboratories, in order to get at the truth, or as near as we can get to the truth. A particular interest of mine
Mhm.
is applying some of the principles we use in courts and tribunals to prove, so far as we can establish anything, and applying that to the accounts and reports of phenomena which are found in every society of which we have some kind of record.
Yeah, bringing in the law court sort of approach, I find particularly interesting as a scientist myself. For often frustrated with people who say science will have all the answers, when actually science itself has limitations, and it's knowing those limitations that allows us then to say we need another tool to explore in order to prove something.
In terms of the using a judicial approach to the evidence, something that I'm particularly keen to increase awareness of is a principle used in the criminal courts for well over a century now, in
Mhm.
order to prove disputed events. It's a technique of analysing evidence which is used particularly in cases and developed out of cases of uh, serial homicide and serial sex offending, where typically you may have no witnesses to the
Mm.
crime that's gone on, or you just have the complainant of herself. In most cases, it's a single girl or woman
Mhm.
who alleges a sexual crime against her of some kind. And the technique has grown up ever since the 1890s that whilst one incident or complaint in itself might be called into question or might be doubted, where you have striking similarities between fact in widely separated cases, or you have a series of strikingly similar allegations or claims, or you have patterns and clusters of facts which are so strikingly similar, those become proof.
Mhm.
Those actually become evidential.
as you're one of our speakers at the conference, can you give us a brief overview of what you're going to be talking about and how it will help our attendees better understand these often misunderstood areas of Christian teachings?
Well, first of all, thank you ever so much for the invitation. I'm going to attempt to say that in my humble reading of the Gospels and the Scriptures, if we look at the data that's been accumulated now in psychical research for nearly 150 years, there is actually nothing inherently impossible or improbable about the accounts of the miracles in the gospel, the phenomena associated with the Lord Jesus, his ministry on earth, his supernatural manifestations
Hmm.
of God's power, that there is nothing inherently contradictory in any of those.
Hmm.
And in fact, you can actually make one reading of the Gospels as a collection of what another context have would be described as paranormal or psychic stories.
Yes.
I mean, the birth of Jesus begins with appearances of angels, and we have the healing miracles, we have miraculous events of all kinds,
Hmm.
ending in the final paradigm history changing
Mm.
miracle of the resurrection.
Yeah.
And many of these have parallels one way or another in the literature of psychical research, be it instances of telepathy. And if we look at the rest of the New Testament, I mean, the Acts of the Apostles are full of incidents which, again, in another context, might be seen or understood from a paranormal perspective.
Hmm.
And I can't bring myself to believe that all manifestations of divine power sort of cease sometime
Mm.
in the first century
Yeah.
AD,
Yeah.
because that really does go against 2,000 years of Christian history. Really, when I look at my psychical research interests, I really look at I'm more interested in two things now. I've investigated ghosts, the paranormal, poltergeists and things as best I can for a long time, heard an enormous amount of testimony. I'm now no longer really interested in the monotonous debate about whether these things occur or not. Quite satisfied on cogent grounds and good evidence they do.
Yeah.
What interests me more now are the wider questions of why these people or why this particular family in a ghost shattered home and
Hmm.
what is going on in in their lives. And
Hmm.
quite often it's a call for help for some kind,
Yes.
which paranormal research can't always provide anything in that direction, nor it may be said can many of the mainstream churches.
Hmm. Indeed.
And leading on from that, I'm also interested increasingly in the meaning of these
Mm.
things.
Yes.
And although the world learns more as it rolls along, or should do, we would hope, it doesn't mean it was stupid before.
Yes,
And
indeed.
it occurs to me that many gifted minds, inspired minds, holy people, mystics, saints
Hmm.
have all had an insight into greater meaning in these kind of events.
Hmm.
And I mean, there may well be many limitations on what we can even talk about, which goes into whole philosophical dimension, simply because we don't have the language. But I think
Yeah.
also it's that there is the potential that there is a deeper meaning going on
Mm.
to some, much, all of this as well, which I find interesting, and that isn't really a direction where I'm afraid science, and certainly not many humanist philosophies, can really yield any valuable insights
Mm.
at all. These are the sort of things that the fellowship seeks to address,
Hmm.
and I think there's an important role for it.
For those people that are going to be coming along to it, they are in for a treat. So Alan, I'm looking forward to seeing you on June the 28th, and every blessing with the prep.
Thank you once again for the invitation, and blessings upon you and your work.